Are you stuck in the same old routine at work? Do you find yourself hitting a creative wall, unable to see beyond your current perspective? It's time to break free and unlock the power of fresh perspectives. David Guthrow back with another episode of Discover Fresh Perspectives. Today, I have the pleasure of having a conversation with Kimberly Lyall. Kimberly, welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
So, Kimberly, we were trying to figure out, okay, what the heck should we talk about? And in our conversation. And, it kind of landed on one of the things that you do is ignite. Either ignite spirit or in people or communities. And that can mean so many different things. So maybe we could start with just what does it mean to you? And we can either start talking about for individuals or communities. So wherever you'd like to go with that, what do you ignite and how do you do it?
Yeah, thank you. I think I'll start with individuals because communities are, a collection of individuals. But I just love that moment where you meet somebody and they get talking about something and you just see that light turn on, that joy, that energy. I think I hope we've all experienced that moment where you're sharing with somebody and you tap into something that matters to them so deeply, whether it's a belief about what they want to do in the world or it's a passion of theirs, which I think is what you're exploring on this podcast, or an idea or whatever it is. And you just see the energy ignite within them. It's like a light turns on and suddenly they become animated and they become focused and they can't speak fast enough. And you just feel this. You feel this ignition, this light. And people are so powerful in that moment, right? You see what belief and potential and possibility looks like. And I just have this passion for helping people connect to that because I think all of us have that within us somewhere. But over the years, it kind of gets buried. We get surrounded by the must-dos and the deadlines and the, day-to-day things in life, and reconnecting people to that thing where they ignite, where they light up is incredible. I think if all of us could connect to that light within us, could be ignited more often, just think of what our communities could look like, which then we look at communities, right? What does a healthy community look like? We talk about creating communities where people can grow and thrive and succeed and explore possibility. What does that look like? So I think the more we can ignite individuals to do the things in their communities that make a difference, that make the community healthier, then we can start to ignite communities and just think of what we could do in the world if that was how we looked at growing, building, planning, all the things.
So I'm curious how you do that consistently, because I have seen conversations where two people are having a conversation and there's something where that one person, their eyes light up, but the other person is so busy and just going on with something else, they totally miss that opportunity, and what's the impact on that person when they've been lit up and it doesn't get noticed?
That's such a good question. I often tell people, when I speak to them, whether it's as a speaker, as a volunteer consultant, in all the ways I show up in the world, that we have to learn how to recognize opportunity and possibility. Again, we're born with it. Kids see opportunity in everything. Give a child a cardboard box and they'll turn it into a million different things. And the older we get, the more we learn how to conform to what society expects of us. And I always say, we learn rules of engagement, and it's not a bad thing. But we get to the point where the older we get, the more we learn what we can't do. The more we're told these things aren't possible. The more society asks us to conform to live a certain way. And we start telling ourselves no. And so we slowly, make that light smaller and smaller and smaller until we limit the things that we used to believe were possible. And so when I tell people, hey, those things are possible, when I can connect with somebody in a way that they suddenly realize I see their potential and I believe in what they can achieve or what they can do, and they start to light up because then they start to believe in it again. That's when the magic happens. And so it's a matter of approaching life saying there is possibility. I can see opportunity all around me, and I just have to believe that it exists and that some of it is meant for me and that I can do something with it. And so, people light up when they're around others who have that philosophy. When you see two people talking and one isn't really invested in understanding possibility or in believing in it, the light often doesn't go on because they just can't have that connection, right? It's more when you've got people that both believe in opportunity or both believe in possibility, then when they connect, the light turns on, they can believe in it and it goes somewhere.
See, that I guess the thing I'm thinking is, how do you keep other people mindful of those opportunities? And to me, it seems like part of it means one has to put their own ego a little bit in the back and not have it just all about them. And the other thing, and I know you used the example of light up, and I like to think of physical metaphors as well. And the picture that came to mind was where you see something that's smoldering, and then you start to fan it until it catches flame, right? Because I think there's still a lot of those little things that are out there that are just smoldering and just waiting to have someone fan the flames to get them brighter. And I do think it takes someone who's willing to step back and not make it all about them, to have enough capacity left to notice what's going on for other people so they can catch those moments and really magnify them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We can't see for ourselves. I might have a talent in a certain area, or you might. But again, we're so mired in the details and in what's going on in our own lives. Quite often we need somebody external to say, I see something. And then to your point, fan those flames. And the moment of ignition, if I think about that, you're using the term ignite, that moment of ignition where there's something there and it might be buried deep and it might be barely hanging on. And then externally, a mentor or a friend comes along and says, I see this in you. I'm digging and I'm digging. I smell smoke and I want to find out where it's coming from. And I'm digging and I find it. And we start to connect on the bigger picture. And you blow that little bit of air that suddenly lights it back up again. I mean, what a beautiful analogy. And I think going back to what you said about community, it also reinforces that we can't do it on our own. We have to have community around us that supports us and helps us breathe life back into that fire. And to do that, we have to go into it without ego, right? Like you said, it's about, I want someone else to succeed. It has to be about them, not about me, and vice versa. And really, a healthy community is about the greater good, not just individual success.
So a couple of comments. One of the things I might have mentioned this in some other podcasts, but that here where I live, they talk about our community, and I kind of go bull, right? Because they define the community as something that's defined by geographic boundaries. And I think a community needs people to communicate and to connect. And sometimes there's communities that feel like they have given up hope. They've tried so many times and they get beaten down either by, politicians at a local level, a provincial level, a federal level. And what do you do when you come across a community that it just feels like you look around and you kind of go, I don't see anything smoldering. Like, how do you work with a community like that? Not that I'm going to take your techniques and use them in my community, but if I do, it's just coincidence. But what do you do with the community? It seems like all the sparks are out, but it's still obvious to you that there's something that needs to be done, and there's capacity that still exists in that community.
It's a really good question. I've encountered this a number of times. And for me, one of the most powerful things you can do is get a lot of people in the same room and create a conversation. I think you're creating conversations with this podcast. And that's the whole point, is that you can get beaten down. You can be exhausted by trying, the politics and all the rest of that. But I find magic happens when you get a bunch of people in the room and you say, this community matters. The people that live here matter. Do we all agree that we care and we love our community? And 9 times out of 10, people will say yes. And then we say, okay, let's start having conversations. What can we agree on? Where are we frustrated? What is one little opportunity that we can try? And if you can just create one thing where there might be a chance to work together or have success, or where we can see something that's different than what we've done before, someone in the room will get excited. And that lights that spark, right? There's been some ignition there. And then that creates enough of a flame for other people to start to tap into, and then they ignite. And it doesn't get solved overnight, and it isn't automatic, but it's just getting some excitement going again, that hope reignited. And I've seen it happen, and it's magic.
So I'm going to carry my physical metaphor probably beyond the point of usefulness. But I think, you come into a community that's cold, but like you said, maybe there's a couple of people. I love the phrase act as if. Act as if you can make a difference. And sometimes that's about two people that are willing to act as if. And let's imagine those are just two sticks that are cold, but you start to rub them together and you get something start to smolder that you can then flame. And it doesn't require everybody, but it does take a few people that start to act as if, right? And you're never going to get everybody, right? But
No.
sometimes spend way too much energy on the ones that'll never be convinced at the expense of encouraging those that are willing to at least try. So then how, you get these fires, you've got these fires going in a community. And how do you ensure that the fire continues after you leave? Because I have seen some organizations where there's a consultant gets things up and running. It's all amazing, but they're so dependent upon that person. When that person goes, the flames die. So what do you leave in a community so that they can keep their own fires going, so it can be self-perpetuating?
Yes. I often tell groups there's two things I like to look at the world through: purpose and process. So purpose is the why. Why are we doing this? Why does it matter? Why does it matter to anyone but me? Right? It has to matter to more than just the consultant. I can walk in and I can say, I see so much potential. I see so many good things in your community that you are so used to, you don't see. So my role as a consultant or a speaker is to reintroduce people to what they've got and the possibility and the opportunity, and to excite them again. But they have to believe in that. They have to find their own why. And so that purpose has to be so very clear. Then process is creating a foundation that this work can continue on from. So whether it's a strategic plan, whether it's a group of people that are going to meet on a regular basis, whatever it is, putting a process in place that supports continually fanning that flame, creating mechanisms that say, okay, if nothing else, this group is going to talk at least once a month or at least quarterly. And so they're able to continue to go back to the why and stay excited about what it is that they're going to do. Sometimes it doesn't work. I'll be honest. Sometimes it doesn't, to your point. And that's a reality check too. We can get people excited about their purpose, but ultimately individuals have to take responsibility for going forth and doing something with it. Communities have to take responsibility for building their community into what they hope it can be. We can't do it for each other. And it's a double-edged sword. I'm a big believer in agency, that people get to own their own decisions. I also think it's incredibly empowering, because no matter what's going on in our lives, and a lot of people are dealing with a lot of heavy, hard stuff. I don't want to minimize that at all. But every day we get to make choices. We get to make choices about, what am I going to focus on? Am I going to let my dreams, my opportunities, my aspirations flame out? And am I going to put off forever what I really want out of life? You can decide today that it's too much for me, but tomorrow I get to make a choice again. And so I often tell people, you get your power back when you make a choice to build the kind of life, to build the kind of community that you believe in. And if you can't find it where you are, then find the people who also believe in it. That's a choice you make, right? And then you surround yourself with people who believe in possibility and opportunity again.
Yeah, I think that's such a powerful word, believe,
Mm-hmm.
because that's That's really deep. It's not like, well, I think I can do it. It's like the little train that could, it's, I believe I could.
Yeah.
That's so important. And I guess, I don't know if you can answer this question, but when you look at a community, how, if at all, can you identify the people that are more likely to be leaders that have that belief in themselves and the community that they can carry on? Right? Is it possible to spot those people? And if so, how?
Mm. I used to think that everybody has the opportunity to be a leader. Actually, I still believe that in a lot of ways. Because again, I believe every one of us we're born with the spark. We're born with creativity. We learn to not be that leader. But again, it's that choice of stepping into that. It's the choice of saying, I'm going to live this kind of life. I'm going to choose to seek opportunity. I'm going to choose to have hope. I'm going to choose to find people who also believe in this. I'm going to choose to keep trying. I'm going to choose to keep learning. I'm going to choose to be curious, right? It's all in the choices. So I think for myself, it's those people, they show up differently. They really do. I was speaking at a student leadership conference at the University of Lethbridge 2 weeks ago. And the students that showed up, it was optional. It was a optional choice. And the ones who showed up, a lot of them displayed those characteristics, those leadership qualities. The ones who reached out to me ahead of the conference to say, can't wait to go to your session. Can I do some pre-reading so I'm ready with good questions for you? I mean, those are leadership qualities. The students who stayed after my session lined up to talk to me and shared with me, this is what I want to do with my life. Do you have any advice? Some of them were in tears. They were so excited about the potential. And so, I think we have this idea of what a leader looks like. But for me, a leader is a person who's willing to make those choices to show up, because that really is what you know, distinguishes a leader, distinguishes somebody who continues to believe. It's about the choices they make.
So I'm going to ask you in just a moment for if there's a case study. We don't want to know who the organization is, but something when you step back, you kind of go, "This is the work I love to do." But the metaphor that I have to let go of it, but I'm quite excited about it right now, is the leaders are the people that fan their own flames. I mean, that fan their own smoldering. Fan their own flames as well. There's some that if you fan them, they'll ignite. They might not do it themselves. They need support around them, a community, and others are going to fan it themselves, right? I just see them walking around with little smoke coming out of their toes. They go, we can get this thing going. I might have to get onto Canva or something and do some diagrams of what this might look like. But if it's not putting too much pressure on you, and if it is, you could just pretend it's a bad signal and hang up. I usually give people that option. Can you think of an example or a circumstance where after it was done, it doesn't matter if it's short-term or long-term kind of thing, you step back and said to yourself, this is why I love doing this work. I feel good about it. I feel the world is a better place because Kimberly Lyall is walking on its surface.
Yes. I'm thinking about how to answer that. I would say that the people I love working with the most are the ones who not only have a passion for what they do, but that their efforts are going to make the world a better place. Mm. I do a lot of work with the non-for-profit sector, and it's been an amazing ride working with people and organizations who are dealing with some of the most critical challenges that our communities have, whether it's access to food, homelessness and houselessness and addictions and community safety and education and welcoming newcomers. I mean, it's the issues are so varied and so broad. What I love about the not-for-profit sector is they're so innovative because they have to be. They have to find ways to constantly figure out how to solve issues that directly affect individuals, that directly affect children, families. These are human beings that we're talking about. And the reality check is when you stop looking at issues as a problem and instead you look at a person who is hurting, who is struggling, that's when you really tap into what this is all about.
Wow.
So in a lot of the work that I've done, I look at organizations who are willing to walk into the hard conversations and into the hard challenges with humility, with a desire to make a difference, who are dealing with the same challenges that every nonprofit has in terms of being underfunded, under-resourced, not understood by many in the community. And instead of moving forward out of fear, protecting their turf and being afraid to lose their funding and not collaborating, they do the opposite. They say, this is a challenge that we need more people involved in solving. And they open up their arms and they welcome partners, and they're taking risks and they're trying different things and they're not afraid. They go forward with such belief. They care so strongly and deeply about what they're doing that they open up rather than closing in. And that's where innovation comes from. They find new ways to solve problems, and they bring different people to the table, and they're not afraid to share what they're doing, and they empower everyone involved to be part of the solution, to bring multiple puzzle pieces to create the picture instead of trying to do it all on their own. And so when I see that, that takes a certain kind of courage. And again, just belief that I can't fix it on my own, but together we can do something powerful and amazing. And that's when I'm involved in that kind of thing, David, that's where I take a step back and go, I love what I do. I love what I do.
So there's so many lessons in there, Kimberly, that not-for-profits can't throw money at. A lot of corporations can, and if it doesn't work, they throw more money to someone else and someone else and someone else. So, how do you take some of those lessons that, I mean, those are heart lessons as opposed to head lessons when I hear you describe that. And is there a way to transfer some of that to corporations, that they're not all, cold-hearted and all that sort of stuff, but how do you bring some of those lessons from the not-for-profit sector? They're doing so much good in the world, and they're not doing it because of the money. They're doing it because they have a passion for it, and they really want to make the world a better place. Is it possible to take some of that into corporations? And have you seen that happen? And if so, how did you go about doing that?
Oh, I love this question. This is actually something I want to focus on doing in the next 3 years, is taking the lessons from the not-for-profit sector into corporate North America. Because to your point, there's so many things that not-for-profits have been on the cutting edge of. When we look at some of the major issues in the workforce today, mental health, working hybrid, aligning your values, the values of the individual with the corporation, attention, retraction, all of those things, the not-for-profit sector has been on the leading edge of figuring that out for years because they had to. To your point, they couldn't be competitive with salaries in many cases. So they had to figure out, why would someone want to work for us? What is a psychologically safe work environment looking like, especially when we're dealing with huge challenges in our communities? So one of my goals is really to take what I've worked with for so long in the not-for-profit sector, those core values of how do you create a healthy work environment so people can thrive, they can succeed, and they can serve human beings on the other end of the picture, taking that information into corporate North America and helping them really embrace those values. Because again, every organization has to ask itself, why do I exist? In the not-for-profit world, you're trying to solve problems in society. In the corporate world, hopefully you're selling a product or a service that somebody needs. And so there is a way to tie those nonprofit foundational values to what a corporation does. And I'd love to bridge that for people.
So what's your sense of where your point of intervention is? Is it at the HR department, or is it in the C-suite? And if you have an opinion on that.
It's both. It's both. I think people who are HR professionals already understand this work. They understand that for a company to be healthy, you need a healthy corporate culture. And that's people liking where they work, people feeling fulfilled, people understanding what's expected of them, all the things. From the leadership or the C-suite perspective, it's a different way of looking at how businesses are structured. And again, if you look at some of the innovators in the world today, they have figured out it's not about the number of hours you work. It's about why are we here? What are we trying to do? And how do we get to that outcome? It's about being flexible and saying, as long as we reach the outcome, how we get there doesn't exactly matter in terms of you have to have so many people in the office, so many hours a week, etc. It's about, okay, if I've got somebody who's really brilliant at a certain thing, what do we do to help them be successful in the role, to feel good with their mental health and their physical health, and to feel like they're contributing to something that matters to them? What does that look like for them? Because then they're going to be able to use their skills to the best possible way, and the outcome that we're looking for is going to be achieved. So it's just a different mindset about how organizations, all sizes, all levels, and government as well, how they can create this kind of a work environment for their people.
One of the potential challenges, and I don't see it in government because they usually don't lay off tons of people at a time. That's pretty much, until you die, you're in there. But you hear about corporations that are making record profits, and guess what? They just laid off 8,000 people, and it's like a statistic. It's not 8,000 people. It's just something on the books. That's 8,000 people. You've affected their family, their self-esteem, all these other kinds of things. And that's, so tough when we look and count people as widgets rather than the way we look at them in a lot of not-for-profits as someone that provides a valuable service and making a difference in the world, right? Oh, they're just making widgets,
Absolutely. And yet, if you look at anything we do in society, when someone was involved somewhere along the way. I often tell people, in the conference we were in last week, I said, whoever cleaned the room up last night so we could be in here today, they matter. The tech team, they matter. The catering team, they matter. Like, all these jobs exist for a reason. And so to your point, it's not just about creating widgets. It's everybody's role matters.
So some of the things that I struggle with, went to see the other night a show with David Suzuki and his wife and another young couple. And one of the requests that David Suzuki made, it was absolutely amazing. Like, just the way the whole thing was done, the way they integrated different ideas. But at the end, he said, if you're willing to start making a difference, cut your consumption in half. Now, look at how many companies in our society are built to run the shuns, the extraction, production, consumption, all those sorts of things. And the fear that if we are to slow down that engine, we'd be in trouble. Yet if we don't slow down that engine, we're going to be in trouble. It was just, I don't expect you to answer that. It just struck me as it's a bit of a paradox and a challenge that we have to come to grips with if we really care about the environment, if the planet that we're living on, and things like that. Because a lot of it, the things that make money are about getting people to buy stuff that they probably don't need.
Well, and to that point, the newer generations are voting with their wallets.
Mm-hmm.
So companies are being assessed based on their sustainable practices, their values, equity, diversity, inclusion, and belonging. All of those things that, might have been considered nice to be having or a marketing thing are not that anymore. People are making decisions on where they're going to work based on the values of the organization. And again, corporate culture becomes healthy when my values as an individual align with yours as an organization. So it's not just about saying we're innovative. You actually have to be innovative. And the people you work with should be innovative. And they should be focusing on a value of belonging, which is more than just including people at the table. It's actually creating belonging, room for all voices, different perspectives. So those kinds of things, I believe society is going to start making decisions on where they purchase, how they purchase, what they do. Companies that are laying off, thousands of people, to your point that they're just numbers. Well, maybe I don't buy my cell phone plan from you anymore. Right? Those kinds of that's the kind of shift that we as a society are making. And the companies that figure that out will be more successful. That's my sense.
This has absolutely nothing to do with what we're talking about, but it makes me laugh because it's something I heard today. And you talk about, who you get your cell phone plan from. So this gentleman phoned up from a particular company. He said, "Yes, we're going to give you 30% less for the next 6 months on all of your plan." And I said, "Well, why would you do that?" He said, "Well, because, a lot of people are leaving our plans because they're too expensive." I thought, oh, well, that's a heck of a sales pitch. Yeah, okay. So in 6 months, that'll be the case. Anyhow, we'll get back to the igniting and ignite individuals and communities. And so, Kimberly, if you were to say, how would you recognize someone who has just that little bit of smoldering that needs a little bit of fanning it to get the flame burst up? How would you recognize someone that's in a good position to start being able to let that inner flame burst forth and to demonstrate the leadership that they can either in their community or in their company? What are some of the signs that you'd be looking for?
For me, it comes by having a conversation with people. Quite often for me, it's after I've spoken to them. So again, I'm a professional speaker, and I believe in this stuff so much that I share examples in my own life of things I've done and people I've worked with, and then people will come up to me afterwards and say, almost hesitantly, this is what I'm thinking of doing or whatever. Something I've said has connected to them within that they've realized, oh, maybe she'll understand me, maybe she'll see me. And then when that happens, my job is just to listen. I mean, truly listen and hear what they're saying and start fanning that flame. I think all of us can do that. Whether it's your work environment, whether it's a service group that you're in, someone in your community, the more we listen to each other, the more we're going to pick up on those things that matter to the other person. And that's when we start fanning the flame. That's when we start saying, I see this in you. I see where you are smart. I see where you are driven. I see that you care about this. Or recognizing things that they've done well and telling them. We do not do a great job in society of actually pointing out for people where they are being successful or where they are exceeding expectation. A lot of times we take it for granted that they know the value and the power that they have, and they don't. People need to hear it. And so those pieces, that's how you fan a flame. And then when you're doing that, you're actually giving that individual the confidence to not only believe more strongly in what they have, not only to build that hope, but the confidence to keep talking, to keep putting themselves out there. We have it happened before social media, but I blame social media for making it worse, that we're so polarized and that we're so judgmental and people are afraid of being canceled or being shut down or being ridiculed. So the more we can counter that with genuinely saying, this is what I heard you say, and of course you can do that. Here's what I've seen in you, and you have more ability and power than you believe that you've got. That goes so far for people. It matters.
And I have a hunch that other people seeing that will start to fan that themselves. And, you said it much more elegantly than I would. The way I look at it is if you look for it, you'll find it.
Yeah.
Right. If you have your radar set to find that, somehow you will see it.
Yes.
Right. If you don't and you're blind to it or opaque to it, you will never see it. So maybe between the two of us, we can change the world. What do you say?
I totally think we can, David. And I just want to point out one more thing. Again, it goes back to choices, because I choose to see the world this way. I choose to see this in people. Therefore, I do see it. You choose to see the good in the world. I know you well enough to know that you choose to see the very best in people and you bring it out in them. And so it is all about the choices that we make.
So, something that David Suzuki said the other night, when people are saying, do you ever get down and depressed and stuff like that? He said, yeah, all the time, but rarely am I and my wife down at the same time. So we can see each other when we're down to help each other up. And I think not doing it alone, but having other people that you collaborate with that have the same spirit is really helpful, because it's really hard to be doing it all on your own. So, I look forward to helping you stay up and aflame, and I hope that you will do the same for me.
Absolutely. I think you're one of my best people, David, and you've always fanned my flame from the time I've known you. So Thank you so much for having me. This has been a great conversation, and I look forward to what else you do with this podcast. That alone, creating new perspectives for people, fans a lot of flames.
It's been my pleasure, Lee. My pleasure, Lee. I speak for a living, just not well. So it's been my pleasure to be here with Kimberly Lyall. And this is David Guthrow of Discover Fresh Perspectives. And just watch to see what kind of speaking mistakes I make in the next episode. Thank you so much. Subscribe now, because on Fresh Perspectives, every episode is an opportunity to explore new horizons and redefine what's achievable.